Welcome back in, everybody, to week 3 of the Alabama High School Sports Association playoff edition of Unrivaled Sports. I'm Joey, and my high school counterpart, Kane Harrison, is back with me. Kane, what's going on?
Hey Joey, thanks for having me again.
Well, it's just you were a staple in Unrivaled Sports now. You're not just a guest anymore. You're a full timer. So I appreciate you hopping on and carrying the high school load for us. Uh, it's week 3. We had some surprises, some not surprises. I think most of the non surprises came in at 7A. 6A kind of went about how we thought it would. 5A, we had a few, um, and so on and so on. I know you went to the Beauregard UMS game. I watched the Gulf Shores game because I wasn't driving 5 hours up to Central Clay County. So, man, how was your Friday night, and what did you take away?
Well, I'll tell you this: we went to the UMS Wright Stadium, and the only thing I can really say is they have a jumbotron, and they replay all plays unless they think they shouldn't replay the play. So there's about 6 plays Friday night that were not shown on the jumbotron that they knew better. So it was
Probably
really
probably
not.
very pivotal plays in the game, if I had to guess.
Yeah, it was, but it was a nice place, man. The crowd wasn't. I don't feel like they had a big home crowd. I thought Beauregard traveled fairly well because it's a pretty good drive. Man, it was a really good. The score was not indicative of how close that game really was, but we'll get to that in a little while.
Yeah,
It was a great atmosphere.
that's good. That's good. And you always like to see that, especially at my high school football is so special. And I know a lot of people pass it by, especially in Alabama, because we have college football, and college football is king in Alabama. But the atmospheres you get in these smaller high school stadiums with the parents and the family and the friends and just the
Mhm.
community coming out, it's always real special to kind of get that feel. Kind of like that first round of the Gulf Shores game. Um, Man, this play that the Sportsplex in Gulf Shores was rocking. And after Friday night beating Central Clay County in a pretty close one up there, they're going to get to host another playoff game. And if they win that one, they get to host two. If I'm not correct, they get to
That's
host
correct. Yep.
the semifinal game as well. So, but yeah, we'll dive into those 6A games, 5A games here in just a minute. First, let's start off with 7A. The and you got to explain something to me. Did they go ahead and like because 7A is such a smaller class? Um, I mean, we're in the semifinals of 7A, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct.
So they play the semifinal game this week and then get a break until the Super 7?
Yeah, so they play it this Friday, and then the Super Seven. So technically, it's 2 weeks away, but they'll play like on Wednesday night. And so
So
whenever,
they'll play the first game.
yeah, so the championship series or whatever, all these games, you'll have two on Thursday, two on Friday, and two on Saturday. But 7A plays on the Wednesday before. And so
Okay.
they get basically, they get a whole week and then two
They get
days.
10 days.
Yeah,
Week
basically before
9
they have
days.
to play. Because they only have, there's only 4 regions in 7A compared to 8 regions in the other classifications. And it's just, they start out and they say, hey, who's the 32 or whatever largest schools? And they say, y'all are 7A. And then they take the next X amount of schools within a certain range in 6A, 5A, so forth. So 1A is usually the largest just because they're all the ones that don't meet the criteria to get into 2A.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and if you ask me, and I'm not going to say the most talented, because I mean that's kind of unfair across the spectrum, but the biggest games I think outside of a few, because I'm gonna throw Gulf Shores and UMS right in there if they make that to the semifinals. But these two games in the semifinals of 7A, Auburn at Central Phoenix City, correction, Central Phoenix City at Auburn, and Thompson at Hoover. Those are like those are big games. I mean,
Hmm.
those are
Oh
those
yeah.
are. I mean, you could throw those on ESPN in early September, and I mean
Hmm.
they're going to get a lot of looks. So by far, these semifinals right here are big. Four big schools going at it. Um, you know, what do you
Yes.
think? Go ahead.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's crazy because if you follow high school football, Auburn and Central, they're in the same region, but this is the fourth year in a row that they've played in semifinals to
Hmm.
get to the championship game. And so, basically the last 4 years, it's either been Central or Auburn, and
And
then
they
that
pretty
doesn't
much
count.
back up to each other. I mean, they pretty
Yeah,
much,
yeah.
you know,
It's like Orange Beach and Gulf Shores. Yeah, I mean, you don't know a lot. Like, really, you don't. I mean, they're so close together. You got Opelika stuck up in between Auburn and Central, but you know, like Central, they've been to 8 straight semifinal appearances, and they won the title in 2018. Um, Auburn went to the state championship last year and lost it to Thompson on
Thompson.
a ridiculous. They were up like 9 with 2 minutes ago or something. They had a punt get blocked for a touchdown. Thompson got the onside kick and kicked the field goal and beat them. I mean, it was an absolute nightmare for those
Yeah.
guys. But I mean, you can't let that happen. But I mean, same thing in the North. Thompson is the 3-time state champ that's coming back. They've been 7 straight trips to the semis, and Hoover's been there 22 the last 23 years. I mean, that's
Since
unbelievable even
yeah,
to
I was gonna
say
say
that.
since back until
I
I was
mean,
in high school, they were,
unbelievable. I mean,
when Rush
there are
Probst was
people.
there.
These kids who are playing high school football, they don't even know anybody at Hoover. I mean, since they've been alive, Hoover's been in semifinals. They've
Yeah.
never missed a semifinal game since we went to 7 classifications in 2014.
You know what's even
Um,
crazier is half these kids that are playing football at Hoover right now never watched one episode of Two A Days.
no, they have no idea. I mean, they have no idea what that school was actually famous for more than anything else. But they've lost to
Yeah.
Thompson 4 years in a row after. So they won 5 state titles. Then they end up playing, and Thompson showed up out of nowhere. They started getting some really good kids in, and um, they've beaten Hoover 4 years in a row to
Yeah.
get to the state championship, pretty much because they're in different regions. But it's crazy. I mean, last week, we talked about last week and the 2 games that down here. You had Auburn and Dothan. Auburn was up 42-7 at halftime. Dothan had like 160 yards at halftime. The Blackman kid, he was a real non-factor. We kind of talked about that. I thought he would do better, but it wasn't him. It was Auburn's defensive line and linebackers. Man, they got some kids who can play, and
Hmm.
they never really gave them a lot of space. End up. I mean, Auburn. That game really could have been called at halftime. Everybody probably been happy about it. Enterprise was the same way. Central just kind of jumped on them, and it was over before it really got to halftime. But now you got Auburn and Central playing, and Central beat Auburn 38. So Auburn's ranked number 1 in the state, rolling into week 8. That's the only loss they have. Central came into town and beat them 38-17.
Hmm.
It was really surprising. I think people thought Auburn was going to, this would be the year they were going to get them, but, or beat them again, I guess, but they didn't. Central is loaded, though. I mean, their skill positions are unbelievable.
Well,
So,
yeah. I mean, this is Central's eighth straight semifinal appearance. I mean, so I mean, these kids are just, this is a team they're used to being there. Uh, I definitely think this Friday I will sit back and try to take in multiple games because the 7A games are just those are two you got to chime in on.
well, I
Uh,
promise you this. I bet you Cadillac Williams is going to be sitting in Central Phoenix's stands
uh,
watching these kids.
oh, 100%. I bet he
They
does.
have some guys. I mean, they have some real good players, and he's probably going to go watch some of those kids. And so a lot of SEC. I mean, there's going to be a lot of SEC coaches at that football game.
Yeah.
I promise you.
Um, yeah, and then we talked about the north side. Hoover. None of these games were extremely close. Obviously, the north side games were with Hoover beating out Hewitt Trussell 28-11, and Thompson taking care of Vestavia Hills 21-12. Uh, I, I'd like. I don't know. I mean, does Auburn get a a little revenge here late in the season, or are we looking at a Phoenix City Hoover final? You know.
Man, I don't know. I mean, I think that I think Central probably beats them again. To be honest with you, I really don't know because Auburn's so well coached. I can't imagine they're going to make the same mistakes as they did the first go around. But it's kind of hard to control a game whenever you're not the best team, probably. But we'll
Yeah.
see. I mean, Central's well coached too now. I mean, Patrick Nix,
Oh,
he's a
we're talking about a lot
he.
of good. Yeah, we're talking about a lot of good. There's
It's
a lot
not
of good
like
coaching going on in 7A.
they're just going to go out there and surprise anybody with something special. I mean, these guys know how to adjust to everything. So I mean, it's just too many two really good football, a lot of athletes and stuff, and they're just going to see who's going to make some plays. Thompson, I think, has two of the top DBs in the country on their team, and so I mean, Hoover. Let's see if they throw it around. I don't know. I think Thompson probably beats them too this year,
Okay.
but we'll see.
So check back next week, and
Right.
if cash your check for a
Yeah,
Central
I've been wrong
Central
before,
Thompson.
but I've seen
uh,
watch them both play, and I think Central's better.
yeah. All right, well, let's roll on to 6A. 6A, little different. You had some big matchups. We were really kind of worried about Saraland making the drive and all the adversity they were going to have to face with all the stuff going on around the eligibility situation. They roll up Tuscaloosa and just take care of Hillcrest 56-31. Uh, kind of. I wouldn't really know. I can't say or for not if it's an upset or not. Homewood edging out Pike Road. I kind of thought Pike Road uh, would be there in that one. St. Paul's took care of Pelham 38-7, which was a big win for our region and Theodore over Hueytown. Um, this is another one of those classes. There's a lot of talent here. There's a lot of good
Mhm.
teams. Um, and like you said, there's a lot of well coached teams. Kind of, let's break down that Saraland situation. I mean, were you a little surprised they went up there and handled business the way they did?
Well, I think we said maybe the score was going to be like a 45-40 or something, and I thought Hillcrest Tuscaloosa would been able to score more, but they really didn't have a problem moving the football. They just Saraland was just so much more explosive than they were. The first play of the game, Saraland, they have Ryan Williams, who's a sophomore, is an Alabama commit. I mean, he's going to. You better just hang tight because he's going to be the number one wide receiver in the country by the time he's a senior. I mean,
Wow.
he's going to be a 5-star All American. The quarterback's only a sophomore too, and I think he has 30 something touchdowns with only 4 interceptions for Saraland. So they're taking care of the football. And the first play of the game, Hillcrest is all pumped up, and they kick it off. They get down to like I think it goes in the end zone or something. And the first play, they aired out to Ryan Williams and he catches for 80-yard touchdown. And Hillcrest wasn't bouncing around as much after that. And Ryan Williams had 6 touchdowns the other night. He had 4 receiving. I mean, they had no answer for this kid. He ran one in off a little jet sweep motion thing, and then they came back and handed him the football, and he threw a touchdown. I mean, for a they say he's only 15 years old. The coach, he's 15 years old, so he has a late birthday. His birthday's
I was
probably in
about
the
to say that's a
summer
young sophomore.
or something. He can't even drive, and the kid had 6 touchdowns in the
Well,
second
you run
round
like
again.
that. Who needs to drive? He can just
Dude, I'm
run.
telling you, he probably just runs to school every day. But he is un. He's probably. I've seen a lot of good high school wide receivers, and I cannot remember one whose speed kills so quickly like his does. It is unbelievable watching that dude. I had no idea. I've watched some clips and stuff. I had no idea he was that fast. He was unbelievable. And the quarterback knew exactly how to throw the football to him too.
Yeah.
Like they're going to be that kid. They may hold. I mean, they may break some records by the time them two are out of school. They're good, and I
So
think
it'd
they
be
beat
interesting.
Holden
Yeah, I mean, it'd be interesting to now they got to get back on the bus and go up to
to
Homewood because
Birmingham.
first Tuscaloosa, now Birmingham. I mean,
Well, here's what's so crazy. So if you look at the bracket, and I was looking at this because Homewood comes down to Saraland, and I was looking up some of the rules on this. And so here's how it goes: if if you get to this point in the game, they look at it and they say who has had more home games in the playoffs. And so Homewood has hosted the first and the second round because of Pike Road winning basically.
Mm-hmm.
And then Saraland hosted the first and had to travel the second. So when they get to the third round, Saraland's sitting over there and they've only hosted one game, so they get the host. I mean, it's fine, but it's still a weird rule because I don't know who should host
But
this one.
do
I
they?
guess
Because the way they're popping up on the bracket shows them as the road team.
Saraland. It shows them bolded. I think Homewood is coming to those guys.
Okay.
Unless
I see. I was still going off the top team on the bracket is the
but
home.
that's how it is
It
until
normally is until we hit
again, you
this.
don't
Until
know until you know see who wins, and then now all of a sudden, I don't
all
know
right,
why they have Homewood on the top of that bracket. I think it's just incorrect on how
how
that's
they
labeled.
plugged it
But
in.
Fairland and Theodore are home because they've hosted. But
I'm
I
I'm
mean,
I'm done with Alabama's way of doing
it's
brackets.
crazy.
I'm done with
It's
it. I'm starting a petition. I'll get all 200 people that follow our page to sign it, whether I gotta go chase them down or not. We're
but
appointing
then
you as the new director
you got
of
St. Paul's.
brackets.
But it's weird because St. Paul's has hosted one game, Theodore's hosted two. But since they're in the same region, they give it they get the
The
host game
Theodore.
to Theodore, which makes sense. But
It
it's like
makes sense
you
if you're
got
like if you're the higher seed, you should get
right,
home
and
field advantage.
that's not the case. But I mean, what are you gonna do? But I mean, I'm
We're
just
gonna
at.
start a petition.
But yeah,
And
I
I know you're
mean,
busy, but we're gonna appoint you the new state of Alabama bracket director for Alabama.
dude. But moving on with that, St. Paul's. Yeah, they play Theodore. They lost to Theodore 16-3 in week 10. So it's only been
Yep.
two games ago whenever they played each other. St. Paul's are winners, though. I mean, they've won titles in 2020, 17, 15, and 14. So when these kids were sophomores, they won a state title in high school football. Um, you know, I mean, I don't know what's going to happen to Theodore. I didn't think Theodore was good enough on offense to beat Hueytown, but obviously they were able to. In Hueytown, they couldn't do anything really. I mean, 18 points. You're talking. I assume that's 3 touchdowns with some missed extra points and 2-point conversions and stuff. So, I mean, that's way off their mark of what they normally score. But the Homewood, the quarterback, he threw for a touchdown and ran for one. They just stopped. I'm sorry, Homewood just moving. They were certainly Homewood. They stopped the run um, a lot better than I thought they would against Pike Road. Pike Road had 46 carries for 230 yards. It's 5 yards a carry. And then Pike County threw the ball, or Pike Road threw the ball 23 times, and they probably don't throw it 5 times normally. And they only, and one guy caught 6 of those footballs, and they only completed 12 of them. So Pike Road completed 12 passes all night, and 6 of them went to one dude, and they couldn't run the football. But at 5 yards a pop, and Homewood just did a great job of scheming them probably.
Yeah. Uh, well, I mean, the kind of the way we look at it right now, it looks like Region One. I kind of hate Theodore and St. Paul's got to play each other, which should be a good game, but uh, looks like they're going to end up with 2 teams in the semifinals.
Yeah.
Because I agree with you. I think Saraland's going to beat Homewood, especially if those kids, like you said, with Ryan Williams and yeah, man, that's just we gotta have like a Sunday ticket for Friday night because
I'm telling you.
it's hard to flip through all these games.
The problem is the app that we watch them through, you can't pull it up 2 different places
Yeah,
because it only
yeah. If
allows you to
you
see
can't watch
it.
it you can't watch it on your phone and on your TV at the same time.
It'll kick you off because it thinks you're sharing the app or whatever. So, and you can't even buy an upgrade to do it. So you got to
And
watch one game.
maybe I
Yeah,
am
it's
sharing it
well, what you do. I mean, what you need to do is get like 10 email addresses and get the subscription for a
and
month.
pay $80.
And
Yeah,
then, yeah, right. I mean, that's
pay $80.
That's
So
really
use
the
every
only.
email address you have and just watch every game. So,
That's
but
really
then
the
you got
only
to have
option.
that many devices because you can't be logged in all at once.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so yeah, 6A. Let's move on to 5A for a minute. And this is, I'm a homer. We all know that the way I am about Alabama, and I'm the same way about Gulf Shores. I was standing in front of you would have thought Alabama was playing for a national championship Friday night in my house,
Mm-hmm.
just yelling at the TV, yelling at the kids, trying to leave the house at end to go watch them get off the bus. I mean, it was wild. Uh, so yeah, Gulf Shores, man, it was exciting. Gulf Shores went up on them. Uh, Ronnie Royal had a great game. I mean, that kid is a stud. But there's also, there's kids on that defense that just have play with a lot of heart. And, I mean, on both sides of the ball. But man, I was watching some of these kids. These kids never been there before. These kids have never been to a second round playoff game. But I'll tell you what they did do. They acted like they'd been there before. They acted like it was normal. It was just the discipline of the kids, not just playing the game, but just like the discipline around the program that stood out to me more than anything else. It was really cool to watch that. And just how they interacted throughout the game. That it was a good experience. Um, and then Faith beats Demopolis 36-15. So that sets up a huge Region One uh, playoff game,
Mm-hmm.
quarterfinal in Gulf Shores, first ever, and Gulf Shores is getting to host it. So that's kind of cool. Uh, did you get to
Yep.
watch any? Did you watch any of that Gulf Shores game at all? Or I
No,
know
I
you were
didn't, I
you
didn't
were
get a
over at.
chance. Yeah, I watched some of them other ones, but I knew you watched it, so I'll let you have at it. But just that region in general, they got three teams in the quarterfinals, and they're going to end up with two teams. I mean, I think UMS Wright beats Charles Henderson, but they'll end up with two teams in the semis, and that's huge. I'm telling. I mean, you got to think about it. You got in the South, there's probably 30 or 40 teams in 5A football down here,
Yeah,
and you after the whole season, the top three of the top four in the South are all from the same region. I mean,
we've
it
talked
seems
about
like
we've talked about seven
crazy.
seven South team, or we've talked about seven teams that are going to wind up in the semifinals from
Oh
this
yeah,
from the South.
yeah, oh yeah. I mean,
We've only covered we've
there's
only
a lot
covered
of talent down here,
yeah
man. I mean, it's
we've only covered three classes. We haven't even really covered 5A yet, but you got three
mm,
team.
oh yeah,
I'm sorry, I'm adding one additional. You're going to have Auburn or Central Phoenix City. Then you're either going to have Saraland or Theodore and St. Paul's. So that's two. So that's three. And then you're going to have two more in the semifinals,
oh yeah.
possibly. So you're looking at five teams through three
Crazy. I
classes.
mean, and
That's
they're all
wild.
within 40, 50 miles of each other.
Yeah.
It's
There's a
fantastic. I mean,
lot
it
of good
really is.
football being played down here.
Dude,
And I mean, that shows it.
if you're a college coach, you could show up and get on I-10, get to Baldwin County and Mobile County, and just if you could just rope off them two counties, you could probably pull out enough kids to make a pretty decent team.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I mean, Gulf Shores, you know, Faith Academy. If you don't know anything about them, they were playing private ball for a long time, and they had some success. But in 2008, they moved into public school, and so what that does for them, it gives them more funding more than anything, and they don't rely just on the, I guess the where they charge the kids to go there. When I'm saying tuition, and so they have more funding from the state, and they have more money to pay coaches and things like that. Well, they were awful for their first 10 years there, basically. And Jack French, who's the head coach over there now, he took over in 2018. He's 46-15 since then. And so Faith is not like there is no kid at that school or a graduate from Faith Academy in the last 20 years that has had any success on the football field. They may have been good at some other sports, but not at football. And so for them, though, I mean, this is their third straight year sitting in the quarterfinals. And last year they lost to Pike Road, who was unbelievable. They lost them 42-0. And then the year before, they actually went to semis and lost to St. Paul's, who ended up winning a state championship. So the kids on this team have been very successful. But I mean, just the history in general. I mean, if you don't know it, just they just don't have a whole lot. But these kids are the ones like setting this foundation, and they've been really successful. But I'll tell you, it's still the best defensive team I've seen on film. I mean, they gave up more points. I mean, what was it? It was I mean, the other night they gave up 15 points, and I think their average for the year is like 9 or something. I mean, they are really, really good on defense. And Gus Shore scored 22 on them earlier in the year and beat them 22-12.
Hmm.
But I mean, I'm kind of curious to see what I mean. Royal's going to have to show up, man. I mean, he's going to have to be the dude, and he's going to have to shrug off some of these guys and just go make it happen because they're freaking coming. I mean, these Faith Academy kids. I mean, they understand what's on the line, and they've been here, and they know how to. I
Yeah.
think defensively, they've turned a corner, and they are really, really good on defense. So,
Well, we've talked about that a few times, just how physical and the athletes that are at Faith. Just that athletic
mm,
ability they have there, and it's going to be a tough one. I mean, I fully expect it. I mean, 22-12 is not a blowout. You know, and Faith, I think, and I could be wrong. Did Gulf Shores travel to Faith in the
mm-hmm.
first one, or okay?
They did.
Um, so I mean, they got and they got a little bit. I mean, I think when you got the athletes and the skill that Faith does, I don't really think home field advantage is going to play that much into it. One thing about Ronnie that kind of stands out to me is he transferred after I say transferred, his family moved after his freshman year in Alexandria. His brother is down here and was a kind of coached at a little gym I went to, and so me and my brother worked out a pretty good, here and there. And man, Ronnie would come in, and I'd be like, man, this kid's little. He's running back. Like he's got offers from where. That kid has put on about 25 pounds from the summer of his freshman year until now. And I mean, he's and it's all muscle. I mean, he didn't put on anything other than muscle, and he can't. I walked by him the other night, and I was like, my goodness, that he's grown foot. Seems like, but he had on a ton of weight for put on a ton of muscle. Yeah, and man, just watching him hit the corners now, and even on defense, just the physicality he brings to the table has been awesome to watch. But there's a lot of good kids on that team. Coach Hud's done a real good job down here in the short term he's been here, and guy you can't forget about J.R. Gardner, another one of those standouts. He both sides of the ball too. He's from Alexandria, uh, runs the ball well, plays good defense on the corners. You got Brandon Bird, not Brandon Bird, Braden Bird. Messed
Braden.
up the first name. He's
I'm
probably
playing.
not watching, but he
Never know.
he does a really good job of managing that offense. Um, so I'm excited for those kids. I hope the ball bounces in their favor Friday night. I hope they don't need any bounces. I hope they come out and dominate. And I know I can already expect. First round matchup, just what they hosted, just that atmosphere from the first game when it was their first ever to host was incredible. I can't imagine what's going to be like Friday night. Uh,
Yeah. So Ronnie, man, he was when he was at Alexandria, he was all state. He was all state running back, first team his first and second year. His sophomore year, he almost had 2,000 yards rushing and he had like 30 something touchdowns up there. And Alexandria were a really good team. I mean, I think I saw them play Piedmont. I think the last game of the year, Piedmont ended up winning the state championship in 3A. But that was his. I mean, they were a really good team with him. And then now he's down here.
yeah,
I mean, there's all sorts of reasons why people transfer and so forth, but we're really happy to have him. And he had SEC offers as a freshman. I mean, he had South Carolina and
yeah.
Florida State, and some of those guys
Tennessee, I
were
believe.
already
I'm pretty sure Tennessee
giving him.
offered him very early.
They gave him offers. I mean, as a freshman, and so now he's. I think they rated him the number one freshman running back in the country after his first year at Alexandria. I mean, in that class. So
Wow.
I think that's going to hold up. I mean, he's a handful now, and so
And
I
the
hope
kid,
he has a
he's so physical. He's so physical. He's
sure.
so like even if he's on offense, like you know how hard it is to stop a guy running the football that's looking to take your head off
Oh yeah.
at the same time you're trying, like because when he's on the other side of the, that's his only mission. He's ahead of
I
him,
mean,
and
they have
he
him
runs the
listed at
football.
5'11". I mean, I think they have him listed like 6 foot. You think he's 6 foot tall? I don't know.
Nah, man,
Might be
5'8.5" on his.
right,
But
but
hey, he's
whatever.
chin level. He's chin level on me, and
It-
I don't want no part of him. I know that
yeah,
much.
well, but either way, I mean, he's a big factor, obviously. But I hope they're
Yeah.
able to get him in space and just let him do his thing. The other games this region, I mean, UMS right in Beauregard. So this game was 35-30 at one time. Well, it was ridiculous. It was unfortunate, I guess, is the main word. So they do a great job on their kickoff returns. So Beauregard went to Squibbit, did a little short kickoff on the first kickoff, and the kid picked it up, got it basically on the run, ended up taking it back for a touchdown. Either way, everything plays out. Beauregard's going in. They've already scored once. UMS Wright ends up scoring. It's 14-6. And Beauregard, I think they ran the ball 30 straight times to start this football game and just smashed them right in the face. And they had them on the ropes, I'm telling you. And they're down there at like the 10-yard line or so, and they fumble it. And the same kid who ran the kickoff back picks up the fumble and returns it for a touchdown. So it goes from being a possible 13-14 game to being 21-6. And Beauregard back and forth, back and forth. Well, it was 35-30. UMS was up. It was like 3rd and 8, and they throw one down the sideline. This is one of those plays they didn't show on the jumbotron. The kid, they call pass interference, whatever. The kid is laying out of bounds, like his whole body's laying out of bounds, and the ball is bobbling around. He catches it, and they give him the spot at like the 8-yard line or something. And at that point, it's pretty much over. But I mean, if it really wasn't,
Tell them why they didn't replay that one
oh
on
man,
the
because
jumbotron.
everybody in that entire stadium knew that kid did not catch that football. I mean, I'm
And
sitting.
they gave him a spot foul, and it shouldn't have been a spot foul, correct?
Well, it wasn't even the foul. They just gave him the catch. I mean,
That's right.
it's not, they were going to give him 15 yards or whatever. But, then it would have been like the 30 or 40-yard line. But instead, they gave him the catch at the 8-yard line. It was just crazy. But they did not replay that play because I think everybody on the UMS right side knew the kid didn't catch the ball until the refs come down there and waving it on and say, yeah, let's go. And
Yeah, somebody
at that
cut
point,
the
it was
feed.
over with. But
Yeah.
they're a good team. I think offensively they schemed Beauregard really well, and I don't think Beauregard was fast enough on defense to deal with them. I think Charles Henderson is not as good as Beauregard is on defense, so I think UMS is probably going to score a lot of points. But again, I don't, without the turnover and the kickoff, this game is really like a 30-20 game or 30-24 game when it's all said and done. UMS Wright may still beat them, but it's not, they don't score 48 points. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just the nature of it. But Beauregard smashed them in the face. That's probably the first time that's happened to them in a long time. But that was the most points they've given up all year for both teams. But it was a good
Well,
game.
and Charles Henderson. I mean, Charles Henderson took care of Tallahassee, 34-7.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I kind of look at that as, I think, I'm not saying that. I don't know. I think you could be looking at. It's not likely, but you could be looking at a Faith versus Charles Henderson game next week too. I think
Very easily.
they're both. I think they're both of those teams could have a very good chance of winning their games this week.
Well, I think Beauregard set the blueprint on how to move the ball on UMS right. Number one, to line up and hit them in the face and not worry about them kids so much because they're completely average on the defensive line. Like that, normal looking kids. Like there's not one D1 kid on that whole defense besides maybe that safety number 6.
Yeah.
He just because of his size. But I'm telling you, man, they've set the blueprint on how to move it. And Beauregard really had them on 3rd and long several times. It's just they got 2 big kids who play wide out, and Beauregard, they had good position and stuff like that, and they just made the catch. But I mean, Charles Henderson's going to look at that film and say, man, we can do very similar things because they can run the football too now. And
Yeah.
so that's probably what they did against Tallahassee and just got them out of their game early. But I think it'll be pretty close. I don't know if I was betting, I would think UMS Wright beats them, but I think it's gonna be really close.
All right. Well, let's roll over to 4A. You got some really good teams in 4A advancing. Um, just just like thought, Jacksonville had a really tough matchup with Catholic Montgomery. Just blew them out. And is that who we were talking about, or is that Mobile Christian, who had to forfeit the games?
It's Mobile Christian.
Mobile Christian. Well, so we'll get to
Yeah.
them. Um, you know, Anniston took care of business. Uh, Andalusia took care of business. Jacksonville fell to Catholic Montgomery, and then T.R. Miller fell to Hanley. So you set up that Hanley Catholic Montgomery matchup we talked about last week, and then as kind of we thought Anniston and Andalusia moving on
Yeah.
into the quarterfinals here.
So the Hanley T.R. Miller game, that score is closer than what that game really was. Hanley T.R. Miller, they took like 8 minutes off the clock to score their first touchdown. And the announcers on the site, they're all T.R. Miller guys, and they're hooting and hollering and stuff. Well, that quickly, I think I think Hanley took like 3 plays to score, and they were so much faster than T.R. Miller. It was like T.R. Miller. They had no really. If Hanley would have just kept handing the football off, they probably would have scored 40 points. But
Yeah,
Hanley, what was so silly was they were up 14-7 or whatever in the second quarter, and there was like a minute to go. And they got a punt, and they called a timeout because they wanted to try to score before the half because they were just doing whatever they wanted to do. Well, Hanley throws a pick six. T.R. Miller runs it back, so that's how they got to 14. I don't know if T.R. Miller crossed midfield the whole second half. I'm telling you, Hanley, they come out because T.R. Miller, they have this little bowling ball kid who runs the football, and none of them are fast. Like, none of their kids are fast like Hanley kids are. And they're like, hey, let's shut this down. Let's call it a night. And they did. I mean, they had second half, man, it was a whole different game. I mean, I think if they played again, Hanley would probably beat them by 40, but
yeah.
that game was not very close, even though the score kind of looks like it. But really, Jacksonville did a great job against Catholic Montgomery. That game
Yeah.
it was like 7-0 in the first quarter. And the problem was that Jeremiah Cobb, who's up there as the Auburn commit, had 18 carries for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns. But the first touchdown he had was like an 80-yard scamper. And Jacksonville has really fast kids. Like if you watch them, they are faster than most teams. And Jeremiah Cobb was faster than everybody they had. And he was pretty much unstoppable. Averaged 15 or 16 yards a carry or something.
There
So
were several games this week, and I didn't write them down, but now that I'm kind of looking through the notes and stuff, there were several games this week where that first play from scrimmage was either an 80-yard touchdown or a 79-yard. I mean, there were several games.
Yep.
Uh, you know, uh, let's talk about this Catholic Montgomery Hanley game for a second. I kind of think, I think Hanley's probably going to be there. I think Hanley's probably going to show up, and I don't know how far of a drive it is, but I kind of like Hanley in that game just to kind of advance to the finals or to the semifinals. Excuse me. Uh, you know, who do you where? Give me some kind of. I don't know a ton about Hanley, just from what I've read about them, what I've watched on them. I think they're the better team here, uh, but they're going to have to score some points.
So Hanley, they're almost like a forgotten team that's been really good. So they won state titles in 2020, 2016, 2011. And actually, they played Montgomery Catholic in 2019. They lost to them 9-6 when these kids were freshmen. So they've
Yeah,
come a long way. I mean, some of these kids probably remember each other, and they're like, "Hey, let's see if we can do this again." Um, Hanley's only loss was to Anniston, and Anniston's sitting up here playing Andalusia next week too, or
hmm
on Friday. But it's so hard with Catholic Montgomery because of the teams they play. I mean, they're their schedule was not very difficult. Like it
Yeah.
really wasn't. The best team they played was Andalusia, and they beat them 45-23. The rest of their schedule, I bet most of them have losing records. They've only given up like 90 points all year, and they had 5 shutouts on the year. So defensively, they score a lot of points, but it's because their defense gives them more possessions compared to other teams. But I'm telling you, when I was watching them against Jacksonville, I was not impressed with them on defense. They look to me, they looked kind of unsound. They were not in the right place. And Jacksonville is not the best coached team in the state, and they were able to move it, especially in that second quarter. They did a good job on them. So Hanley, though, they got a big nose. I mean, they're fast. They kind of remind you of Faith Academy as far as that on defense. I I really think unless the Jeremiah Cobb kid goes crazy, I think Hanley could beat these guys.
Yeah.
I mean, stats are stats, but it's when you're playing Pike Liberal Arts and Bullitt County and Dale County and Slocum and Geneva, and you're beating them 68-0. Yeah, there's your stats. But
Yeah.
the only two teams that they've played that had an offense, or the three teams, was Jacksonville, Andalusia, and McGill-Tulane, and they all scored 20-something points on them. So I think Hanley is good enough, better on defense than all those guys.
And that wasn't a slight at Geneva. I got some friends from Geneva. They were just
Yeah,
giving out true facts here.
look,
Just in case they decide to watch. I don't
I,
want nobody coming after us.
I mean, look,
Geneva doesn't get too
I
much
don't make,
airtime, so I figured I'd throw them a little shout out.
I don't make the records. You know what I'm saying? So I just say what I see, and it's on them to fix it next year, so they're not
That's
getting
right.
called out on the show. I mean, just gosh almighty. Yeah,
Hey,
don't
I mean, hey, getting called
nothing.
out on the show is about as much publicity as they're going to get anyway.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
well, there another one I don't want to skip over. Anniston Andalusia. I think that has the potential to be a pretty good matchup here in the quarterfinals. Um, it, excuse me. Like you said, I mean, Anniston had a big win over Hanley in week 7. So uh, I think these two teams, kind of match up well with each other, and probably going to duke it out here in the quarterfinals.
They're almost very similar. But again, Andalusia's schedule, I don't know if it's
Kind of
prepared
the
them for it.
same.
I
Yeah.
don't think they had the same. They're in the same region as Catholic Montgomery, and I don't know if their schedule has prepared them for this game. The only team that in my opinion is very good on that schedule was Milton, Florida, and they beat them 42-31. Outside of that, I mean, now in the playoffs, Jackson gave them a run for the money. I didn't think American Christian was great, and I mean, I think they're going to be in a rude. They got to go to Anniston, which is right beside. That's where Central Clay was. That's
Yeah.
up there near Lineville and all
A little
that.
north.
I
Yeah.
mean, 4 hours or something, and they haven't traveled anywhere this year. And so, I mean, they went to Bibb County, but that's not really that far. I think Anniston probably puts it on them pretty good, and I just can't imagine. I don't know. I just don't know if Andalusia can beat them. I really don't. I mean, especially as bad as Anniston beat Hanley, and I watched Hanley several times, and they're athletic. I'll tell you something funny though. I was watching the Anniston BT Washington game, and I know. So, do you remember BT Washington's colors when they came out here to Orange Beach? When you watched that game,
No.
well, they're yellow. I mean, like
That's right. Yeah.
gold yellow. Like
Yeah.
I can't even think about a team that even has that color. Well, at home, so they were playing Anniston at home. They had yellow helmets, yellow jerseys, and these yellow pants, and they were like highlighters out there on this field. And I'm watching it, and the videos like you can't see a number on anybody. Like you don't
It's
know
just
what
streaking
number
across your screen
anybody
back
is.
and forth.
Well, so Aniston kicks off, and the first possession, BT gets the ball. They go to punt it, and the personal protector there beside the punter. Nobody's even around the kid, and he like falls down in front of the punter, and the punter kicks him in the head with the ball, and Aniston picks it up and scores. And from then on, it was pretty much over with. I mean, it was a disaster for those guys. But
I
Like I'm
mean,
watching the game and my wife's sitting there. She's like, "What is that?" I was like, "It just that's their colors." I mean, they were like, you don't even know how many people's on the field because
yeah,
they're one big
it's just one bold
yellow
streak of
color.
highlighter yellow.
I don't even know if I could take myself seriously if I was. I mean,
Like, come
I
on,
can't. Even,
coach.
it was kind of like it would be like Michigan wearing their yellow
Straight
color,
yellow colors.
straight yellow, 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 and yellow, yellow. It was crazy. So
Like
they got a nice
something
field there,
Oregon would do.
right? It was wild,
All
but
right, let's roll over 3A. So talking about 3A, you know, man, there were some good teams coming out of here. Just looking at it and to see where we're at now with the four we're left with in the for the quarterfinals down here. Uh, man, like we talked about last week, Dadeville versus Thomasville. That was a we kind of thought Thomasville was going to win it. Didn't it? I didn't really see it. I didn't see it going into overtime, but
mm.
you know,
hats off to Dadeville. I thought Thomasville would score 40 points on them. I mean, I think I
yeah.
said that, and I was wrong. Dadeville was obviously able to stop the prolific wing T offense. So, but
Well, hey, got to give it to them in overtime, though, right?
well, Dadeville did the right thing. They couldn't move the football at all, and it was 14. I guess it was weird because they go for 2 point conversions all the time. I don't know why, but they do. And Dadeville scored.
Analytics. It's got to be
Yeah, right.
analytics.
So they scored late in the game and tied it up, or whatever. They ended up going to overtime. It's 7-7 or 8. Yeah, it's 8-8 or something, right? Thomasville scores, kicks their point. Well, then Dadeville scores, and they're like, "Man, we might not score again." And so they go for two to win it and don't get it.
Yep.
And so, and I like reference the LSU Bama game. Like that's the right call. I mean, if you're struggling,
It
you're like
is.
either you can't stop them or you can't score 1-2. Go for two because that's as close as you might get again to that end zone.
Yeah.
You're at the 2.5 yard line. If you basically sit there and say, "Look, man, you got 2.5 yards to win this football game,"
Yeah.
and they do not, they couldn't do it. So, hats off Thomasville, man. It's a heck of an
Yeah.
achievement.
Uh, yeah, you're right. I mean, when you're in that situation, and I mean, I was at the LSU Bama game. I mean, I don't. If there was anybody in that stadium that thought that LSU was just going to kick field goal there and go into
Well,
second overtime, they're crazy. Alabama hadn't stopped them all night, and I mean,
mm-mm.
that's the right call in that situation.
Yep.
Uh, so yeah, looking at the two games from or the two out of the four games, is that right? No, two games. Thomasville is going to St. James. Now, this is their first trip to the quarterfinals in a long time. I don't.
Yeah.
Were you out of high school in 2003?
I was getting there.
I didn't graduate in '06.
I was still messing around in there, but
Where is St. James?
St.
Can
James,
you?
I'm pretty sure they're in.
Because I have no clue.
Hang on, I tell you, I think they're in Montgomery. To be
Okay.
honest with you, but
Well, that seems to
no,
set the pattern for most of our football teams. There's a lot of Catholic and Christian football teams in Montgomery that are really good at football.
yeah, it's just. I mean, I'm just gonna be honest with you. So let's see. Let me see exactly where they are. I'm pretty sure they're in Montgomery though. Mm,
Is it?
yeah,
It's not St. James in Fairhope, is it?
no, this is they're in Montgomery. So the reason why you have those, man, is because you have school systems around them that are difficult. I mean, if you're in Montgomery, if you're in a city system in Montgomery, it is a difficult place. It's
Yeah.
just a difficult school system, and it's not necessarily desirable all the time. And so they have an opportunity to go to St. James or just like over in Mobile. I mean, it's not always desirable to go to some of the city schools if you depend on where you live or whatever. So they go to the Fates and the UMS Rights. You know, it costs money, but it kind of depends on what you're able to do. But you know, look at this bracket here. St. James kind of come out of nowhere, but they score a lot of points.
Yeah.
And I think Thomasville I don't think they've seen anybody like Thomasville because I mean they just they lost to the only two really good teams they played,
Yeah.
which was Charles Henderson and Hanley, and both of them scored a lot of points on them. But Thomasville is kind of inept on offense, it seems like, and I didn't think Dadeville was great on defense. So I mean, I assume St. James, especially having them at home, I think they beat Thomasville decently. And I'll tell you the one though, Mobile Christian, they keep marching on, and they put it on Trinity, and I thought Trinity was a decent team, and they may they may be the only 7-loss team ever to make a semifinal game. I mean, they got to win a state championship to have a winning season.
Yeah.
So I mean, right now they're end of their year. They're either, I mean, I think they beat Pike County. I mean, I do. They beat HA 30. What was it? They beat Houston Academy 30-3, and
Hmm.
Houston Academy beat Pike County by a point on the last game of the year. I mean, you can't if you compare scores. It's a bad thing to do, but at the same time, I mean, matchup wise, you would think Mobile Christian has an upper hand here. So Mobile Christian, they could walk into the semifinals being what 7-7. I mean, dude,
And then I mean, you know, and which I mean, that's the team that had to forfeit the games, correct? So they
right?
had to
Yeah.
forfeit a bunch, and then that's what's
I think they
uh,
forfeited 4 of them, and they lost 3 on their own. But
but they forfeit, and that's kind of different too. Like I get when we look at records, they're probably what you take give them 4 wins back. They don't. They play a little tougher competition.
dude, if they would have won all that, they would have been in the XL spot, and they would have already played Pike County, and then they would have played Alabama Christian. They'd probably still be sitting here. They'd be sitting here playing.
I'd be sitting here either way.
Yeah, they'd probably be sitting here playing Trinity right now. You know, or shoot XL again because I think XL would have had a better chance of beating you know Trinity and HA opposed to Pike County for whatever reason.
Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's just crazy. Great for them, dude. I'm telling you, everybody was holding their breath. I bet they wish they would have forfeited another one because then they wouldn't have made the playoffs. But I mean, they had
Well,
a
now
tie.
you're looking at a St. James and possible St. James and Mobile Christian semifinal. Uh,
Oh, 100%.
so
I think Mobile Christian. I think they're licking their chops and they're saying, "Man, let's deal with this St. James bunch and see what happens." But
so moving on to 2A, uh, you got a few good teams. BB Comer, uh, we got Reeltown coming in for this quarterfinal matchup, and then Clark County travels to Highland Home, which we've talked a lot about Highland Home, especially they've got some kids on there. A couple kids made the All Star game.
mm-hmm,
Um, and one thing you got jotted down here, BB Comer, this is his second trip since 1995.
mm-hmm.
Okay, last year and this year. So I mean, they're kind of coming on here as of late, and you know, Reeltown shut out GW Long. This is a good matchup. I think the defensive side kind of plays into BB Comer, but I mean, Reeltown's proved several games already this year they can score points, and they're not scared to score points.
They're obviously very athletic. I mean, they've had 4 shutouts this year, and I mean, I don't know what's going to happen to them. I mean, they held Highland home to 8 points
Yeah,
or to 7 points to beat them 8-7, and you know, I mean, BB Comer, I'm super impressed with their running back. I talked about him last week. Yeah, Whitesburg is always a really physical team, and they run the ball a lot. So that game was probably shortened big time because they both just run it a ton. But I mean, I'm telling you right now, GW Long to beat them 55-0, you really have to have something going on because they're
yeah,
always tough kids, and they're winners of there. They hold the state record for state championships in baseball. So these kids on this GW Long team, they're winners. They're probably going to have a chance to go win the state championship in baseball again this year. And so there's not like they're sitting back. Like they know how to compete. And so for Reeltown to do that to them, man,
yeah.
BB Comer, they may be in trouble.
Well, and you start seeing a pattern with some of these games too, especially when you get into the quarterfinals with these smaller classes, with just these teams playing each other every year. Like these are programs that are developed. You know, Highland Home and Clark have met before. I'm not really sure on. I know that Reeltown's been in the playoffs. This is their seventh time since 2003. Uh, BB Comer, that's another. They haven't been there as much, but they were there last year, and they probably can continue to develop and be there next year too. So that's something you kind of see across these smaller classes. Is these teams just Clark and Highland Home? They're familiar with each other.
Oh yeah, they lost. I mean, Clark beat Highland Home last year in the semifinals to go win a state championship, and then Clark County also beat Reeltown. Beat BB Comer last year in the playoffs too. So there's
Yeah,
three teams here who know each other really well, and they would all like to deal with Clark County again. But Reeltown, I mean, they won a state. They went to the state title in 2019 in 2A. Um, these kids are. I mean, when these kids were freshmen, they were in a state championship game. Ended up losing it, but they were there, and they have decent history. They won a lot of games. They were in 3A the last 2 years, and so they kind of struggled in that region. But just because of the type of football they play, but now they're back down here where they're more athletic than everybody. And I mean, again, BB Comer, this is the second year of them being really any good. And I didn't know. I know a lot about high school football, and they never rung a bell, just because. I mean, really, this is their third year, their third winning season since daggone 2000. So,
yeah.
I mean, they just haven't had a whole lot of success until the last 3 years. But they were in 3A too. I mean, they were in 3A football from since 2000, and they just could not compete in that. And now they're back in 2A where they can actually do some stuff. First
Yeah.
time, even. So
Well, who do you like out of 2A to advance to the semifinals here?
Reeltown, and I mean, I'm gonna say Highland Home. To be honest
Okay.
with you, yeah, I mean, I think that's a fair bet.
Well, that's another one to watch this week. Is that Reeltown BB Comer just to watch the athletes on for Reeltown, that explosive offense. And I mean, obviously, I mean, if they're putting up that many points and shutting people out, they got to have a good defense. So it should be a
Mm-hmm.
fun. It may not be a close game, but if you just watch the football team just for to see what they got going on, it'll probably be a good one. Well, one is the loneliest number. I've been waiting all night to say that. Just throw that out there. 1A, the last class, and man, just I was watching this earlier or looking at this earlier. Uh, I can't point. I don't know where Leroy or Brantley is. I don't. Not either one of them. I mean, it sounds
Brantley
like
is Brantley's in close to Luverne, so they're like neighbors,
that
and
makes
so
that makes sense. They're probably
they're
cousins.
above, basically above Dothan, between Dothan and Troy. I guess would
Troy.
be a good place to
Okay.
say. So they're kind of in the southeast Alabama. Leroy's, I want to say they're in Choctaw County. They may be in Washington County, but they're on basically probably there.
The
So you got
west side of the state.
Sweetwater, Milry, Leroy, Linden. They're all up
43.
between between Thomasville and Tuscaloosa,
Okay.
and so
Gotcha.
they're right on the west side of Alabama. So Brantley has like a 4 hour trip. They're going from one side of the state all the way over to Leroy, and Leroy is not an easy place to play. But Brantley, I mean, to me. Leroy to only hold Maplesville to 8 points with the athletes I know they have. Leroy's. I'm telling you right now, there's not. If these four teams were sitting in the 2A bracket, I may still pick Leroy or Brantley to beat those teams. If if they're in 3A, if they're, I mean, so Brantley lost to Highland Home 27-28 halfway
Hmm.
through the season. So you think about it. I mean, you got two. I mean, that's 1 point with the team that Highland Home is probably going to end up being in the semifinals. Brantley could very. I bet you Brantley could hang with Mobile Christian. They're better than most 2A schools. I mean, I'm telling you, they are well coached and they're winners for sure. Um,
Well,
you know,
and kind of touching point on my last topic in 2A. A lot of these teams, are familiar with each other. Not familiar with each other, but they're familiar with where they're at right now. Just kind of going through some stats. Brantley's been to the third round 14 times since 2003. Leroy, third round 13 times since 2003. Um, some of these teams are this is normal for them. And I think that adds a lot to, especially when you move into this third round, you start getting into these deeper games in the season. Uh, experience, no matter whether you're 4 years or not, you got coaching, you got kids that have been there, you got programs that have been there. I mean, that plays a lot into effect too.
oh sure. I mean,
So
they understand how important it is to win these games. It's
yeah,
not just. It's not. They're not going to look back on it and wish they would have did more because they understand what it means to win and lose them. In Sweetwater, I'm not touching this last week, but I mean, it kind of comes in waves. But at the same time, I mean, they won it last year. They won it in 2017. They won it in 2010, and I mean, they're basically every senior class who rolls a bat there is probably going to have a state championship. Um,
yeah.
they won 4 out of 5 from 2006 to 2010, and so well, shoot, really they run 6 out of 8 right there. I mean, they won a bunch of them, and so and what's so crazy is that the guy who's at Stacy Luker, who's at Clark County, was at Sweetwater for so long, and he won all those state championships, and he jumps over to Clark County, and now they're winning them too. So he's obviously understands how to coach small football, but I mean, again, if you know anything about high school football, these 4 teams right here, there ain't nobody in 2A who wants to see them, and I bet you 3A Pike County does not want to play Leroy or Brantley or Sweetwater because
Yeah.
they are. I mean, they know how to win. I'm telling you.
Well, that is pretty. And that's another one. Sweetwater, 14 times since 2004. Like these three of these 4 teams are just this is home to them. Like they are
Mm-hmm.
comfortable. They've kicked off their shoes. Like this is just business. So, well, who you like coming out of this 1A?
I want to say Brantley, but I don't know. I mean, playing Leroy at home, I think Leroy probably beats them. I think it's a Leroy and Sweetwater game, to be honest. And I guess it looks like maybe Leroy would host that one. I don't
Yeah,
know.
looking at it, let's
Act
see.
like I know the rules of that, but
I
obviously,
mean, Leroy would now have hosted 2. Sweetwater has hosted 2.
and Leroy's
What
on top of the bracket, so
what weird Alabama rule comes into play to where Sweetwater hosts? I mean, what are they gonna?
I guess Leroy hosts would have them, but they, I don't know. I mean, just seeing what Leroy's doing to people. I mean, Maplesville is super athletic. It was surprising to see that score at Maplesville, but they're right down
Yeah.
the road from each other, so it's not really that big of a game, big of a travel.
So there you have it. There's all 7 classes broken down to you by the pro, Kane Harrelson. What do you think? What's your standout? What's the obviously? I mean, Friday night it's a home game. I want to get to the Mick, watch the Dolphins. May have something coming up, so I probably won't be able to get out there till late.
Mhm.
Um, but I mean, what you got? You flipping through 10 games this weekend, or you going to take one in?
I don't know. I mean, I'm probably gonna watch the Gulf Shores game. To be honest with you, that's the one. I mean, I'll try to flip through the 7A games, but I've already watched Auburn and Central, so it's not like I'm gonna see anything special there. But I want to see if Gulf Shores can score on Faith Academy because I think they figured it out on defense. And then the other one is I want to see. I mean, probably one of the 4A games. I think that's both of those are awesome. I
Yeah.
mean, I'll probably be flipping between Andalusia and Anniston, and and then Gulf Shores and Faith would be the two I'm gonna watch if I don't go to the Gulf Shores game.
Well, I definitely want to keep tabs on our 6A guys. That St. Paul's Theodore. Just check on them,
Very true.
and Saraland too. I do think Saraland wins that one. Um, you know, I just kind of looking at it. I'm probably going to check in on Reeltown, like I talked about. I mean, if a team score that many points on the playoffs, in the playoffs, and
If they had the camera up, who
that's
knows over
right.
there?
Yeah,
I'm telling you, they may not. They may.
we are talking about Reeltown. I mean,
I
it's
mean,
not.
you may not be able to tell any numbers on anybody or whatever. They may, Real Town's blue, and I'll tell you. So Real Town's blue, and Leroy is or who are they playing? And BB Comer's is going to be in black. So Real Town be wearing white jerseys, and BB Comer's going to be wearing black jerseys. So there you go. That's probably all the distinguish you're going to get.
Yeah. Well, awesome. Well, man, good luck to all the teams this weekend. I appreciate you hopping on and breaking it all down for us, and I hope you guys at home are enjoying it because I'm enjoying it. This is the best hour I've had today. Man, when are we gonna get you on the live show? That's what I want to know.
With the college and everything, whenever. I mean, I watch
Man,
college football too, so I mean, I'm not oblivious to that, but whenever
man,
you want to do
we'll throw you on tomorrow night. I think we're gonna try to do a live show tomorrow night. If you want to pop in for a
it.
little
Yeah,
bit, you're welcome to. So.
yep. Just let me know.
Uh, yeah. Well, man, I appreciate you hopping on. Thank you everybody for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. Give us a like and follow on whatever we're on YouTube. And man, I'm just looking forward to growing the high school part of this. This has been fun, and I'm learning a lot. That's the thing is I love high school football. I don't necessarily keep up with it. And man, the information you provide to me and to the rest of everybody else it's a lot of fun. So it's just one more thing.
Oh yeah, yeah. And hopefully, any comments or anything somebody wants to know something about or whatever, just let us know. We'll do some research and figure it out.
Yeah. All right. Well, man, we'll see you next week. And
Sure.
Thank y'all for watching. This is Unrivaled Sports Prep.